Tonight, a historic resignation. Justin Trudeau to step down as the race to replace him ramps up.
I intend to resign.
Bowing to pressure from his own party.
I cannot be the one to carry the Liberal standard into the next election.
His regrets, and what's next with Parliament now on pause. Waiting in the wings, the top contenders fighting to fill the vacancy.
Her brand has come out ahead on all of this.
The reaction from across the country, including Trudeau's home turf.
I understand that the situation in Parliament became way too intense for him.
Plus, how Elon Musk and Donald Trump are weighing in exactly 2 weeks before Inauguration Day. And a look at Trudeau's political and personal legacy.
I'm not just a last name.
The stumbles and successes inside the rise and fall of a leader born into the public eye.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening and good to be back with you on this consequential day in Canadian politics. After nearly a decade in power as Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau pledged today to step down once the Liberal Party chooses a new leader. We have extensive coverage tonight on who could take over and what U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is saying about the resignation. But we begin tonight with CTV's Mike LeCouture and the reaction to the historical political exit.
My friends, as you all know, I'm a fighter.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he never backs away from a battle. But even he admitted with a growing caucus revolt, it was time to go.
And it has become obvious to me with the internal battles that I cannot be the one to carry the Liberal standard into the next election.
Those internal battles started a year ago when Liberal MPs began calling for a change in leadership. The very public departure of Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland stung and seemed to change his calculation that he could win a fourth mandate.
Recognizing that removing me from the equation as the leader who will fight the next election for the Liberal Party should also decrease the level of polarization that we're seeing right now.
By proroguing Parliament until March 24th, Trudeau has bought the Liberal Party a few months to choose his successor. And opposition parties are ruling out deals to keep the Liberals in power beyond then, regardless of who becomes the new leader.
So we are facing the same people with the same values, the same ideology. We have to go in elections.
New Democrats will be voting against this government for an election where Canadians will have a choice.
A Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, didn't take questions from journalists, only posting this video on social media, taking a swipe at Liberals.
They want to protect their pensions and paycheck by sweeping their hated leader under the rug months before an election to trick you and then do it all over again.
Asked if he has any regrets, the Prime Minister said one did come to mind.
I do wish that we'd been able to change the way we elect our governments in this country so that people could simply choose a second choice or a third choice on the same ballot.
Electoral reform was something the Liberals could have done when they had a majority between 2015 and 19, but they did not. Reflecting on Trudeau's legacy, the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador said history will see him as a consequential leader of Canada.
Materially changing the landscape of social programs and Indigenous relations.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford said that legacy remains to be written with the ongoing fight against Donald Trump's threat of 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods.
He still will be Prime Minister for a month, maybe 2 months, but that has to be his number one focus.
Alberta Premier Daniel Smith was disappointed at Trudeau's decision to call a leadership race and not a general election.
We need an election so that whoever is in the chair has a 4-year mandate. And so when we go to negotiate with the United States, there's some certainty about who the players are going to be at the table.
While Trudeau focuses on those issues with the U.S., he was also asked if he believes if another Liberal could beat Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre in an election. Trudeau's response? Yes, absolutely. Omar.
All right, Mike, thanks. And joining us now is CTV's chief political correspondent, Vashi Kapellos, who has been tracking developments all day. Vashi, a key question now is whether a new leader can change the fortunes of the Liberal Party.
Hi, Omar. Yeah, I think you've identified the absolutely appropriate key question about whether or not the fortunes of the Liberal Party can be reversed. And that's because of the background context to why the Prime Minister made this announcement. The Liberals have been trailing the Tories by 20 points or 15 to 20 points, depending on the poll, for more than a year. That is a sustained and important, I guess, sort of background to all of this. And I think there will be two markers to judge whether or not there's going to be a change. The first is when that new leader is actually selected. Will that make a difference and close any of the gap to any degree with the Conservatives? And then, of course, the election will be the ultimate barometer of whether or not the Liberals' fortunes can actually change under someone new.
Now, whoever takes over has a challenging task. What are you hearing about the leadership race?
Well, I've got to tell you, Omar, my phone is abuzz from Liberal MPs who are all saying different things about what they hope to see. Some of them envision some 3-month leadership race, which feels impossible at this point. Others say it can happen in 30 days. It's going to be up to the board to decide how that essentially plays out. But the real marker has been set by the opposition, right? They've identified the fact that when the House comes back after prorogation, they plan to bring the government down. What happens after the government is brought down by opposition parties? An election, which makes it pretty close to certain that we will be seeing a campaign early in the spring. Omar?
All right, Vashi, thank you for this tonight. And speaking of that leadership race, the list of contenders is growing. CTV's Judy Trinh on who is in the running.
Why not earlier? The Prime Minister did not respond to the question of why he didn't quit sooner. But after facing a caucus revolt in the fall, Justin Trudeau caved on a winter's day.
I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader.
That means Trudeau will still be on the job until the end of March, despite his sinking popularity.
The long leadership race and leaving Justin Trudeau as the face of the party are risks to the monumental challenge that confronts them.
The Liberal Party's board of directors will meet later this week to set out the rules of the race. For now, contenders are thanking Trudeau for his leadership on social media, including former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, who forced this moment.
I had really hoped that she would agree to continue as my Deputy Prime Minister and take on one of the most important files that not just this government but this country is facing. But she chose otherwise.
Freeland's resignation and attack on the government's spending priorities have catapulted her to the top of the list, ahead of former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney.
There's been some damage done to the party, whoever you ascribe fault to. And that's something that we have to, frankly, resolve over the next weeks as we unify around a leadership process that is yet to be decided.
At least 9 people are interested in the top job, among them several women and 5 current cabinet ministers and a former BC premier.
This is going to be a really exciting period where we are going to have high caliber individuals say that they want to lead the country and become the next Prime Minister of Canada and help to meet the moment.
The Liberals expect to have a new leader in place by March 24th, when prorogation ends. Whoever gets chosen will be in a precarious position. The opposition leaders say when Parliament resumes, they will vote non-confidence soon after. Omar.
All right, Judy, thank you. And here to break down how some of those contenders are resonating with Canadians is Nick Nanos of Nanos Research. So, Nick, you've done some fresh polling on this. What does it show?
You know, it's interesting, Omar, when we take Justin Trudeau out of the equation, the two frontrunners, Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney, the kicker is that in the last couple months, Chrystia Freeland has picked up steam and pulled ahead of Mark Carney in terms of appeal to Canadians, likely a result of the way she handles herself during the resignation.
Now, if there is a spring election, there isn't a lot of time to catch up to the Conservatives. Vashi referenced earlier in the show that 20-point plus gap. Is it even possible to significantly close that gap with such a tight timeline?
Possible, yes. Probable, no. Realistically, for the Liberals, they're trailing by 20 points. They would need the Conservatives to mess up, the NDP to mess up, the Bloc Québécois to mess up, basically everything to go wrong for all of their opponents and for everything to go right for them. Highly unlikely, Omar, highly unlikely. Right now, the election, or the future election, and whoever is selected as leader is probably about saving the furniture.
All right, Nick, thank you for this tonight. There has also been reaction to Justin Trudeau's exit from Canadians right across the country, including in the riding he represents. Here's what they told CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin.
At this metro station in the Montreal riding of Papineau, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the local MP, established a tradition. The morning after every election, he greeted his constituents, posed for selfies to thank them. Today, his resignation was greeted with little surprise here.
I think it's a bit unfortunate. Unfortunately, I understand that the situation in Parliament became way too intense for him.
In cafes and shops across the country, many offered the same reaction to the news. It was time.
I think a fresh new year, a fresh start is absolutely essential.
This from British Columbia all the way to Newfoundland.
I think it's about time. You know, he hasn't done too much lately. And we don't want to become the 51st state.
We need a new blood running this country. It's been devastated.
I feel great. It's about the best thing that's ever happened to Canada, I think. He's really destroyed our country, and it's about time we see a change.
Some say no matter who leads the Liberals, change will only come with a new party. But some supporters say this offers them some hope.
I'm a lifelong Liberal, so it's a little disappointing, but I'm glad he stepped down because this way they stand a slim chance in the next election. Otherwise, they would have tanked. They would have gone down with the ship.
It's in Papineau, where Trudeau launched his political career. He took this riding from the Bloc Québécois in 2008, despite some skepticism about the Trudeau name since the October crisis and the War Measures Act. It's perhaps here that there remains most affection and praise. Trudeau often dropped by this beauty shop. The owners proudly show off this video of one visit.
He was a good prime minister, and, we just love him.
But here, too, in this ethnically diverse neighborhood, the housing crisis and economic issues are top of mind. And many had lost faith. Trudeau was the one who could help. Though many here in Papineau thanked the Prime Minister for representing this riding for so long and wished him well. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
Also weighing in on Canada's politics is the incoming U.S. president, who will be officially sworn into office 2 weeks from today and has threatened punishing tariffs. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin on Donald Trump's latest taunt.
In the quiet of a snowstorm and massive security, Vice President Kamala Harris certified the election she lost for Donald Trump.
Has received 312 votes.
A peaceful transfer of power, far cry from 4 years ago when a mob of Trump supporters violently attacked the Capitol to stop Joe Biden's victory. But Trump wasted no time wading into Canada's political turmoil, trolling Justin Trudeau, saying many people in Canada love being in the 51st state. If Canada merged with the U.S., there would be no tariffs, taxes would go way down. Together, what a great nation it would be. Trump says he'll slap tariffs as high as 25% on all Canadian imports on day one. And renegotiating the free trade deal is on the table. Justin Trudeau's mini summit to Mar-a-Lago in November with promises to secure Canada's border only brought on more mocking. Trudeau's resignation, say Canada watchers, leaves Ottawa in a precarious spot.
There's no invasion. The U.S. will not do anything drastic. Trump is going to be so quick to hit the ground running, and Canada should be running along with, able to negotiate out of negative consequences like tariffs.
MAGA world, including Elon Musk, Trump's billionaire buddy, doing a victory dance. 2025 is looking good. Trump won, Trudeau resigned. But all this talk of becoming American has stiffened some Canadian spines.
I think it's a little ridiculous that he thinks he can start taking over the world.
I think Canada's great as it is.
Trump has urged Wayne Gretzky to run, and some senior Republicans still aren't sure who Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is, leaving Canada little time to be ready.
So the question is, who will be in charge in Canada, and will they be in a position to really respond and defend Canadian interests?
Unlike 2016, this time Donald Trump is armed with an aggressive economic agenda and tariffs a top priority, Omar.
All right, Joy Malbin in Washington, thank you. For more on the impact, let's bring in President and CEO of the Business Council of Canada, Goldie Hyder. Goldie, so much at stake here. You never want to negotiate from a position of weakness, and the political tumult in Canada is something Donald Trump has seized on. To what extent does Justin Trudeau's decision today stabilize some of that chaos?
Well, it only works if we can call a political timeout and the other side doesn't move forward with those tariffs. But of course, you can't do that. And so we need to be ready for that. It's created tremendous uncertainty. It has created a situation in which we are vulnerable because the question is who speaks for Canada. For all intents and purposes, there's a caretaker government here until the Liberals sort out their leadership race.
So what does this mean for businesses? What is the sentiment in the business community today? And what does it mean for Canadians overall?
Well, the uncertainty creates risk, and we don't like either one of those things in this case. What we're looking to is what's the consequences on our economy. It's pretty much on life support. Unemployment is rising. Businesses are going to be quite concerned with the impact of tariffs on them, but also on Canadians in terms of employment and job losses and inflation that could come out of these tariffs. So not a good place for us to be, Omar.
All right, Goldie, thank you. Coming up.
It's business as usual to a certain extent from the Government of Canada.
Examining the stakes with Parliament now on pause.
Tomorrow, conned by a contractor.
I can't believe that we had this happen to us.
With seemingly nowhere to turn.
Every lawyer you talk to wants 10 grand down. Well, now we don't have the 10 grand.
How two Canadian families fought to get their money back.
I suppose I could say I'm in financial ruin.
W5 investigates tomorrow on CTV National News and ctvnews.ca.
Justin Trudeau's request to the Governor-General to put all parliamentary business on hold is casting uncertainty on plans the government has already proposed. Here's CTV's Heather Wright on what the move means.
Pause, reset, suspend. Proroguing Parliament effectively ends the session, meaning opposition parties can't trigger an election with a vote of non-confidence.
Prorogation is used and abused far too much in Canada.
The last time Parliament was prorogued was in 2020, when Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said the government needed time to lay out its response to the COVID-19 pandemic, though it was also facing scrutiny over the We Charity scandal. Stephen Harper's decision to prorogue Parliament in 2008 sparked intense backlash, as the Conservatives were expected to lose a vote of non-confidence in the House of Commons. Harper's Conservatives went on to win 2 more elections.
In this case, there's a pretty clear reason why prorogations happen, so that the Liberals can choose a new leader. So that's a somewhat better reason than some of the others in past there. But it is putting off when the government is going to fall. So it is still escaping a difficult political situation.
And while all pending legislation is effectively dead, government will continue to function.
Obviously, the government's legislative agenda stalls in that period. But the act of governing under its current executive powers all continues. It continues its power to make appointments. It's business as usual to a certain extent.
But some high-profile plans are now on pause. Among them, the $1.3 billion border strategy that was announced last month, a response to the tariff threats from the incoming Trump administration. Trudeau's proposed changes to the capital gains tax are also on pause, changes that were met with pushback from some members of the business and tech communities.
Parliament must meet before the end of March to approve money for the new fiscal year. It will resume March 24th with a throne speech and inevitably confidence votes, any one of which could trigger an election. Omar.
All right, Heather, thank you. Still ahead, the impact of a deadly winter storm in the U.S. At least 6 deaths are blamed on a severe blast of winter weather stretching from the American Midwest to the Mid-Atlantic.
We haven't had snow like this, really in memory.
The massive storm blanketed Washington with more than 15 centimeters of snow and unleashed a travel nightmare, causing chaos on slick and icy roads and bringing air travel to a virtual halt. Around 2,000 flights were canceled and more than 6,000 delayed. The worst has passed, though, but hundreds of thousands remain without power. In Atlantic Canada, winter storm warnings were in effect today for parts of Nova Scotia and PEI, with up to 60 centimeters expected in some areas. This as crews work to restore power in Newfoundland. Massive waves slammed the coastline in parts of the province, tearing down trees and washing away some small buildings. More than 8,000 homes and businesses were left without power. And WestJet is facing some legal turbulence as the BC Supreme Court orders it to hand over all its files on harassment of flight attendants. It relates to a class action lawsuit first filed in 2016, alleging widespread misconduct by pilots and accusing the airline of breaking a promise to provide a harassment-free workplace. The ruling says WestJet has been slow and, quote, potentially adversarial in providing complaint files, which has been a factor in delaying the trial. Still ahead, looking back at Justin Trudeau's legacy as his time at the pinnacle of political power comes to a close. A resounding rise to the top job is ending in a dramatic fall. CTV's Alison Bamford takes a look at the Prime Minister's personal and political legacy.
Justin Trudeau grew up in the spotlight, often side by side with his father, then Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau. There was pressure for him to pursue politics, but in this 1995 interview with Sandy Ronaldo, he set the record straight.
Never. I'm going to be a teacher.
A few years after that interview, Trudeau was back in the public eye when his brother Michel died in a 1998 avalanche. And 2 years later, he gave the eulogy at his father's funeral. Trudeau married Sophie Gregoire in 2005. They started a family around the same time he entered politics. In 2008, Trudeau captured his first seat in Parliament.
Justin!
The MP proved he could punch above his weight in a charity boxing match win. And by 2013, Trudeau became leader of the Liberals, catapulting the party from third place to a majority government in 2015.
Sunny ways, my friends.
But his first mandate wasn't all sunny. A 2016 vacation violated the Conflict of Interest Act, and a visit to India became the butt of jokes for late-night talk shows. Then there was the SNC Lavalin scandal and the high-profile resignations of Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott, along with this resurfaced photo during the 2019 campaign.
Should have known better, but I didn't. And I'm really sorry.
Trudeau's Liberals survived that campaign and a third election with minority wins. He led Canadians through COVID-19 and invoked the Emergencies Act that ended the Freedom Convoy. In 2023, Trudeau's personal life once again made headlines. He and Sophie were separating after 18 years of marriage. As leader, Trudeau leaves behind a legislative legacy that includes marijuana legalization, the carbon tax, medical assistance in dying, $10 a day childcare, and universal dental care. The Prime Minister says it was his fight for a better Canada that kept him in the game. Alison Bamford, CTV News.
And that's a snapshot of this Monday for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching. Good night, and see you tomorrow.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.